that we have inalienable rights given to us by God: life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. If you believe in those, then you are an American. How many Americans do we have in here? Now, unfortunately, there's another creature. Those are people that were born here, but they're hostile to American rights. And I call them Americans in name only, or ANOs. And we got a whole bunch of them running our offices, don't we? So and there's a worse kind of ANO. There's one that's called the nanny authoritarian statist idiots. The ANO Nazis. And we got a whole building full of them here and in Washington. Now, we hear a lot about the Second Amendment. So let's talk about the Second Amendment. What does it say? It says, boy, I'm going blank here. Okay. A well-regulated militia being necessary to secure a free state, comma, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Now, right to keep and bear arms, that's pretty self-evident, isn't it? How about that part, that shall not be infringed? Yeah, we have 20,000 laws plus infringing our rights, don't we? Okay, would you guys like me to tell you how that happened? No, seriously, how many of you people here know how that happened? Okay, so I'd like to take you a few minutes to give you a little short layman's history that isn't being taught in our schools to our children. Okay, when America was founded, our country was the federal government was very small, the states were sovereign. The whole Bill of Rights, it applied to the federal government, and that showed and that part about not being infringed, it applied to the federal government strongly, as well as the rest of the Bill of Rights, but it didn't apply to the states and local governments. And that's something that's not being taught, because you see, all the states were literally sovereign states, so the whole federal Bill of Rights did not apply to the states. That's how we got the gun control laws on the local and state level in the first place. So I'm going to run you through some history really quick. 1791, Constitution is passed, we get the Bill of Rights. And the Bill of Rights is a chain on the federal government. Fast forward, we had this thing in the mid-1860s called the American Civil War. Some of you might have heard of it. Depending on what part of the country you're from, you might call it the war between the states or the war of northern aggression. Okay, after the Civil War was over, we had some amendments passed. The 13th Amendment, which freed the slaves. The southern states reacted by creating what's called the Black Codes. And the first thing they did was they stripped the newly freed slaves of their gun rights. Because once they stripped them of their gun rights, they could strip them of all their rights. Gun control started with racism. Anybody who supports gun control is a racist. The 14th Amendment, which was ratified in 1868, there was much debate about it. But one of the core things that they wanted to give back to the newly freedmen was their right to keep and bear arms. Because that was the only way they could protect themselves from corrupt local politicians and men who rode on horses with white hoods. Yeah, well, you know, we're gonna get it. We gotta be nice to some people. Some people here are Democrats, so I'm not gonna be name calling. A little bit. Okay, well, anyways, 1868, we get the 14th Amendment. There were two key provisions of the 14th Amendment relating to our civil rights: the due process clause and the privileges and immunities clause. Basically, the 14th Amendment was written to turn the Dred Scott decision of the Supreme Court on its head. That's what was done. However, the Supreme Court in 1873 and 1876 gutted the 14th Amendment with the Slaughterhouse and Cruikshank cases. So effectively, we were back to square one, except of course the states were no longer sovereign. Fast forward to 1934. How many of you heard of the National Firearms Act? Oh, yeah. Well, how did they get that through? Now, even though the Second Amendment didn't apply to the states, it then will apply to the federal government. And the way they got around it is they created a tax. So what the National Firearms Act did was they tried to tax guns out of existence. And the original draft of the National Firearms Act actually included handguns. It wasn't just machine guns. It wasn't just short barrel rifles and shotguns. It was, they were trying to go for almost everything. They backed off on the handguns for a little bit. Okay, 1939, some of you may have heard about the Miller case. Well, the Miller case was a set case. It was a one-sided case argued by the government and was designed to kill the Second Amendment. Okay, fortunately for us, the justice who wrote the case was known to be lazy and not that great, so he left a lot of holes in it. So after 1939, we had no Second Amendment rights on a federal level. We could not bring anything into courts to protect our Second Amendment rights. Fast forward to 1941. There was a court decision dealing with the Commerce Clause. How many of you know what the Commerce Clause is? Okay, let me give you a quick little thing. The Commerce Clause is the key to getting our freedom from federal tyranny. Would you like me to explain? Would you like to know how this works? Okay, originally the Commerce Clause was designed to promote interstate commerce